whatever it is they're building behind me in the office, it's something crazy. It sounds like some desks are going into the offices, so if there's any noise, my apologies. But this is the Motorola Electrify 2. It's available at US Cellular now, and it's packing some pretty decent specs as what I would consider to be kind of a low high-end device on US Cellular. The downside is, at least when I pull it up, it's showing up as $179.99. So for $180, you can get this with a 1.2 gigahertz dual-core Ti OMAP processor, a 4.3-inch display with 540 by 960 pixels, an 8-megapixel camera, 1,780 milliamp hour, non-removable battery. So it's a nice device all around with ice cream sandwich. It does have Motorola's user interface, but a very light, almost stock version of Android 4.0. So specs-wise, it's not a bad device. That said, for 20 more bucks, you can get the Galaxy S3, which includes some great specs that are higher than this and packs 4G LTE capability. So if you're in a market where US Cellular markets 4G LTE, you'll be good to go there and you won't be on the Electrify. So those are things you have to consider with this device, but all pricing aside, it's probably my favorite Motorola device in the market right now for a couple of reasons. One, this kind of flies in the face of what I typically say in a review where I say user interfaces are still kind of required for the mainstream consumer. I still believe that. That said, for you people that like stock Android, that's pretty offensive. I didn't mean to call you people. That's terrible. But for those people that like stock Android purists, this is going to be a near perfect device because it offers an almost clean stock version of Android 4.0. It has Motorola's user interface, and you do see Motorola's customizations in a few spots. You'll notice the on-screen button slightly different here. Recent applications looks almost identical, and you'll see some changes in the notifications bar, and of course in some things like applications, where you can see Motorola's icon layout over here as well with widgets. Kind of looks like a Motorola look and feel there, but you'll notice that it's a very pared back version of Motorola's UI, even more pared back than devices like the Atrix HD, the Photon Q 4G LTE, and more. But it's available at US Cellular. Power buttons on the top, 3.5 millimeter headphone jack on the top, micro USB charging port up top as well. Volume rocker over here. Nothing on this side with the exception of your micro SD card slot and then your micro SIM card slot if you're in an LTE area, which I'm actually roaming. I'm not in the US Cellular market right now. And then you've got an 8-megapixel camera on the back with 1080p HD video recording, a US Cellular logo right there, and then Motorola on the back as well. US Cellular on the top, or on the bottom rather. Also, and then the Motorola logo up here with your front-facing camera. 1,780 milliamp hour non-removable battery here means that you should be able to make it through the day. It's non-removable though, so if you're not carrying a charger, you might be out of luck long-term here if you need this device for a few business calls throughout the day. But we'll talk about that in part 2. Out of the gate, you get a couple of things here: alarm and timer, Amazon Kindle, Amazon MP3, App Store, so some Amazon customization there, FM radio pre-installed. Then you get some stuff like HD Games, Help Center, IMDb comes pre-installed along with Let's Golf 3, US Cellular's mobile TV. You've got My Accounts, which is a Motorola thing, Tone Room Deluxe, US Cellular there, Your Navigator, US Cellular there, and then Zappos as well, and then some widgets out of the gate. So you get Android widgets here, and then you get Motorola widgets. This, for example, is very clearly a Motorola widget, and much like the Android 4.0 widgets, you can customize the size of Motorola's widgets, as you can see here. So I can make it full screen or nearly full screen. I can make it half screen. I can really customize these widgets to make them my own. And again, in stock Android configuration here, there are 5 home screens, as you can see right here. And when you hit home, it takes you right back to the one in the middle. So not a whole lot comes out of the gate when it comes to US Cellular applications, Daily Perks, Your Navigator, and Tone Room. And let's take a look and see if any of those can be uninstalled. In the past, some of them have been able to be uninstalled. We'll take a look here and see which ones you can here, if you can do it with any of them. Perhaps you can't. Looks like Your Navigator can be uninstalled. Either that or at least the update to Your Navigator. We'll take a look. Uninstall, finish. It looks like I can get rid of that. I can get rid of Let's Golf 3 as well. So if you're frustrated with those games that come pre-installed, you're like, I'm never going to use Let's Golf 3, which, let's be honest, is like me. You can get rid of that and save up, or shore up rather, some space on the device itself. Let's take a look at messaging. We'll open up text messaging. I'm going to open this up here and see. And we'll enter the recipient over here, and you'll see Motorola's custom keyboard here. Now, this is not an Android 4.0 keyboard. It's Motorola's multi-touch keyboard, or Moto English Input, as they're calling it now. Google Voice typing and swipe pre-installed out of the gate as well, so you can take advantage of either of those. Now, this is a 4.3-inch display, and if you've worked with something like the One X or the Galaxy S3, you'll notice right out of the gate that this is not an HD display. Portrait to landscape transitions nice and fast. The Ti OMAP processor works relatively well, and it's clocked at 1.2 gigahertz. But again, taking a look at this, the blacks are nice and black on this device. You do get a nice display, but that said, it's not an HD display, and it is noticeable when you're looking to me at high-resolution text or images or things like that. I can really tell the differences. So we'll say the Quick Brown Fox, and we'll autocorrect that to brown, or the Quick Brenda Fox is happy that it is hump day. Or how about bump day? It's bump day. Do the Humpty Hump. Yeah, do the Humpty Hump. Well, do the Bumpty Bump, whatever. The Quick Brown Fox is happy that it's bump day, but I meant to say hump day. And you'll see in landscape mode as well, 4.3-inch display means it's really easy to type on this device in both portrait and in landscape. Motorola's keyboard, not my favorite anymore. I actually like the Jelly Bean stock keyboard and the Ice Cream Sandwich stock keyboards quite a bit, but Motorola's multi-touch keyboard is nothing to scoff at by any means. And when you look at the user interface-based keyboards like this one versus the TouchWiz keyboard versus the HTC Sense keyboard, I do find that Motorola's keyboard is impressive, and to me it's a little bit better than Samsung's keypad and HTC's keypad. So keep that in mind as you're going through your buying decisions. We'll take a look at the browser here as well. Again, 3G on this device, 3G only, no 4G capabilities, and I'm in a non-US cellular market right now, so I'm roaming off of most likely Sprint. So forgive the internet speeds. These are not necessarily indicative of US Cellular's true network performance, but we'll take a look at PhoneDog.com and let it load up over here as well. So pinch to zoom, much like the Droid Razr and the Droid Razr HD, or Droid Razr Max on Verizon, pinch to zoom is relatively responsive here, little to no lag, and again, you can really draw comparisons between this device and the Droid Razr and Droid Razr Max on Verizon. So obviously the HD and the HD Max are on their way, and they're differently designed, but this one reminds me a lot of the Razr on Verizon. So if you love that design, you like the Kevlar back, which this has as well, you like the front, but you wanted something on US Cellular, this could be your option for them, and you can stay on your carrier. So we've got PhoneDog here, and you can see the tabs as well as all the browser information here. When I go in here and click menu, I can refresh, I can request desktop site, save for offline reading, and more. So I've got all of those features there, just like I do on typical Android devices. Also, let's take a look at the phone application, and forgive me, I've done some test calls, so I want to make sure there's no recent calls in there. But you can see the dial pad here again, has some Motorola influences to it, but still, it's probably the most stock look and feel out of any device in the market right now, particularly when you get to phone book and you take a look at something like customer support, and you can really see, we'll go back out of that actually, and we'll go into people directly so you can see customer support. You can really see the stock Android 4.0 colors here, this light blue with customer support in white text. You can see the phone number, and if I had a picture for customer support, instead of this little silhouetted man, or perhaps it's female, I don't know, man or woman, I could do a picture right there. Call, messaging here, and then menu up at the top I can edit. So again, a really clean looking user interface here that reminds me a lot of stock Android. So if you do like that stock Android look and feel, this could be a great device for you. Otherwise, I think it's going to be one of those things where you have to look at the Galaxy S3 or perhaps one of the carrier's $99 offerings, because the price point is just too high on this phone. At 99 bucks, I could really justify it. At 180, it's tough to justify, but I will leave that to your good decision-making processes, I should say. So add a Google account. I did have one on here earlier, but I did a hard reset on the device, so you can see we'll load up Heron Baker at gmail.com. The full Gmail interface, as you can see here, looks pretty similar to previous builds, although obviously they upgraded it for Ice Cream Sandwich and beyond. So Ice Cream Sandwich devices and Jelly Bean devices have this new interface. You can see reply button, menu here, and then menu down here as well with some shortcuts that are just labeled by icons. Now, keep in mind, on-screen buttons here means that even though this is a 4.3-inch display, you're going to lose some of that screen real estate due to the fact that the buttons always stay on screen, even in applications like YouTube, which unfortunately you would think the buttons would be able to be removed or at least hidden. They're not. We'll talk about that more in part 2. Stay tuned for that, and stay tuned for more on speed